Thank you again for joining In True Form. We're here with another special guest, Charlotte. Charlotte, can you please tell the audience who you are?
Yes, absolutely. I am the CEO and founder of SenterMe, the first emotional wellness and stress management app for women professionals. And I'm super excited to be here.
I am super excited for you to actually be here as well. So just to let the audience know, I met Charlotte a while back. So how long ago was that Triangle Tech Night?
That was probably, I want to say it was last year, but it had to been like it had to be like April sometime,
okay.
March or April, because I was in an accelerator.
Okay, so for those who don't know, I do the photography, event photography for Triangle Tech Night. Shout out to Chip Kelly and what's my other man's name? That's my other guy's name. I can't remember it right now.
He's about JP.
JP and Chip, they booked me for their events for Triangle Tech Night, and Charlotte was at one of the events. They had a women panel up, and
Women in Tech, and
they killed it. What was the lady's name that was sitting on that
Bernice.
Bernice.
I love Bernice.
You know she just got hired.
Where?
With Tina, the CIO of one of the secretaries of tech. She put her on her staff. I'll tell you about that off camera.
Oh yeah, we gotta talk about that.
Yeah, I was just recently at the governor's mansion doing NC Tech's photos for their 32nd annual leadership banquet. And I seen Tina there, and I seen Bernice there. And Bernice said that she just started working with
Bernice is a problem. I'm talking about, like, when I say I met with her a few times, and the information that she gave me, you could tell she's an expert. She did not come to play with this. This is her thing. And so because of her, I was able to have more insight in how we wanted to structure our data security for SenterMe. And so, like, she was just giving me a lot of, like, best practices.
She got a lot of jewels.
Yeah. And so, matter of fact, I just catch up with her.
She look like she don't take nothing. Like, she look like she don't nobody play no games with her. She like she can cook, she can clean. Every time I see Bernice, I just be like,
I'm trying to tell you,
come over to
that
the
was
crib.
the energy she was giving on the panel too, though. Like,
but on the panel, they was looking for her to answer all the questions.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, when Chip asked me did I know any women in tech, I intentionally gave him a list of all of the black women I knew in tech. And so he basically went down that list. I was hoping that Kenya was going to be able to get up there too. She's
Kenyatta.
monster.
Talking about Kenyatta?
No, Kenya Odor.
Oh, I haven't met Kenya.
She's
I thought you were talking about
amazing.
Kenyatta,
now,
though.
Kenyatta a problem too. Okay, I love you. Talking about Kenyatta Hall, right?
Yeah, she this.
Yeah,
all day.
That's my
Shout out to Kenyatta Hall.
Yes, but so she was booked already. So they ended up. I was just like, well, you definitely want to get Bernice. Okay. And so when I sent Bernice an email, I was like, hey, do you mind if I, make an introduction with you and Ken? I was gonna say Kennedy. His name is Chip Kennedy, but I was just like, she was like, yeah, and then I made that happen. I was just like, I got to go, because I hadn't been to any of the Triangle Tech Nights, but I was just like, this one I got to go to. So.
Yeah, man, so for those who don't know, I sound like Kirk Franklin. For those who don't know, but Triangle Tech Night is out here in the RDU. They basically put on different AI informational events, and they just tap into a whole nother realm as far as with technology. And not only is it a great resource and a networking opportunity, you actually have an opportunity to get hired if you're looking for work, because they have CEOs there and some managers and things like that they're trying to put people in roles and seats and stuff like that, are inquisitive minds. As we shift a little bit off of Triangle Tech Night, I have a few questions that I wanted to throw your way, Charlotte. First and foremost, your energy is contagious. I am already a goof, but sometimes when I'm around someone else that has that same level of energy, I dial it back just a tad bit, because my wife can say, you going in right now, babe. That's what she'll say. So I want you to have the floor. As we mentioned before in the past, I have a few questions for you to tap into SenterMe, but I'm gonna go random, and then we'll close it out at the end of this episode with some questions that are a little customized.
Okay.
Based off of what we're pulling in from today.
Got you.
Let's just jump right into SenterMe. It's all about emotional wellness and self-care. What inspires you to merge technology with wellness, and what impact do you hope to create?
Okay, so loaded, but I got you.
That was my loaded weapon. Anyway.
But like, so the crazy thing is like, and I think that this is kind of like a great, because I wanted to say this, but when we were talking about Triangle Tech Night, but what I love about the Triangle Tech ecosystem is how easy it is to immerse yourself into it. Like, it's making it more accessible to those of us who had not been thinking about it before. Now we have this new lens of how we can morph our ideas and our businesses because of the integration of technology. And so, again, shout out to Chip, shout out to JP. But I say that to say, whenever I first started networking in the Triangle startup ecosystem, I was hanging around a lot of people that I didn't know at the time were in the tech industry. It was just me just showing up wherever everybody was at, because I was on a mission to just, build my network and just like get more people to know who I was. And I talked about my mission all the time. Like, I want women to learn emotional wellness. I want women to learn stress management. And there was this conversation that I had with Anthony Rotoli. And
Who is Anthony Rotoli?
So he's also in the tech ecosystem here in the Triangle, and he specializes in ed tech.
Okay.
And so he was in between CEO roles, and I just called him at a really great time because he was in a transition.
Okay.
And so he was giving me a lot of his time at that time.
It's a divine time, by the way.
You know what I'm saying?
Good.
And so he had asked me, I told him that at the time I was looking for an emotional wellness center. Like, I wanted to do that. But he was, and this is just goes to show like how really great mentorship can bring the best out of you. And so he kept listening to me say, I just want to get out of this room. I feel like every time I'm speaking, I'm worried about whether or not they got everything that they needed. And I just want to be able to do more. I want them to have somewhere that they can come to whenever they need it. And he was just like, well, Charlotte, have you ever thought about tech? And I was just like, are you talking about a mental health app? I was like, no. I'm like, I said, no, I haven't. He was just like, well, it sounds like to me that you keep saying you want to amplify your impact. You keep saying you want to reach more women. You want them to have access, even with, beyond the speaking. Because I was doing like workshops, speaking engagements, stuff like that. And I felt the restriction of the room. And so he was just like, well, why don't you explore tech? And I was just like, I don't know. But then I started sitting with it for over the next few months. And I was just thinking, what would I do differently? I don't like mental health apps because I know for sure, without a shadow of a doubt, that you cannot have a successful emotional wellness journey without embracing community. It's one of the key elements of our emotional wellness because we are social creatures.
Right.
And so how would I do this differently? And so that's basically what I did. Over those next few months, I just started ideating, like, how would I bring this new era or this new generation of mental health apps to the space? And I didn't want to be afraid of niching. Because, when you think about the Headspaces and the Calms, it's like they are forced to be generic in their delivery because they serve everyone, right?
Right.
Whereas when you really want to make an impact, and this just goes back to your question, when you really want to make an impact in people's lives, you can't be afraid to niche. And there are opposing thoughts on niching because from an investor standpoint, they want you to think scaling, right?
All the time.
But when you exist in an abundance mindset and you exist in a space of abundance, there is no such thing as lack or scarcity. And so for me, it was just like, I'm niching, but there are so many women that are just like this person that I'm serving. And so I took an approach of, I'm going to create content that is specifically for women who are juggling all of the things. I'm going to speak to her as the annoying little sister who got to watch her do all of the things and take notes about how I was not going to do that. I was not going to run myself raggedy. You know, I'm not going to burn out behind everybody else. And I'm going to also create space for her to connect with other women who are in that exact same position.
When you mentioned earlier you felt resistance in a room, restriction. What did that look like? Like, peel that back a little bit. What kind of restrictions did you feel?
Like, I knew that, one, I know who I am, and I know what my gifts are. So I know that one of my gifts is amplification. So if I'm in a box and I know that my voice has the ability to move energy, to shift energy, and I want to shift energy on a massive level, this box is now restricting my vibration from reaching the masses. And so that's what I mean by that.
Got you. You deep, huh? See, on the other guest, I made her cry. And I got my Montel on. But you got me over here thinking like, man, do I need to be taking some mushrooms or something? So what actually, was it a person or a situation in your life that made you want to focus on the mental health and the wellness and things like that for women? Was it something that basically just happened in your life? You know how some people have episodes? What was that moment in time where you actually was like, okay, this is my purpose, this is what I need to do?
Oh man, so it was a culmination of so many things that happened in my life. And you know how you have these really tough moments in your life where you're just like, why is this shit happening to me? I'm sorry.
No, you good.
Why is this happening to
shit.
me?
It's just shit. Good.
But it's just like, you know, why is this happening to me?
Right.
And I had so many of those moments. And I was just telling, when I was speaking just now, I was telling the audience, you know, I get deep fast because I do also believe that vulnerability is one of my superpowers.
Right.
So just to get a little bit deeper beneath the surface, I have experienced childhood abuse, sexual abuse. I only knew, my only vision of a relationship was a toxic one.
Right.
And so I was a people pleaser, often suppressed my emotions to please others. So I was never advocating for myself. And because of that, part of me was constantly suppressing anger. That was like one of my most difficult emotions.
Right.
And so now I'm like this ticking time bomb, really, because I'm just walking around life letting people walk all over me. I'm in all these, you know, abusive relationships. I don't know my self-value. I don't know my self-worth. I don't know who I am.
What ages were you at in those different parts of your life?
So all the way from 6 to early adulthood. So it was just kind of like, I remember thinking to myself as a young adult, like, I wonder if people can just smell it on me that I'm a pushover. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
you start feeling like it's written on your face.
Yeah.
It's sort of like how women be like, man, why am I a magnet for jerks? Yeah. Like, I get it. I get it.
And so now I am severely depressed. So I'm like, it is a dark space, but I don't realize now. 2020, I'm like, whoa, that was bad. Like, you know, hindsight is always 20/20, they say. And so I'm just like,
new hindsight. You
know, and so I was just kind of like, wow, this is a really dark space. And I mean, I was battling with suicidal thoughts and everything.
Really?
Fast forward, I had my first child, and I never knew that I was depressed. Because I didn't know what they called it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so by the time I had my son, I was experiencing really bad postpartum depression. And so now there's a name for it, but I'm like, this is, at this point, it's bad. You know what I mean?
For some people who don't know, just to kind of scale it down, what are 3 different behaviors for some women that might be actually going through postpartum? What are 3 behaviors that they can possibly be experiencing that they don't even know that this is what they're going through? This is just for some of the audience that may tune in and watch, and they just had a child, or you know what I mean? Like,
so for me, one of the biggest things that I experienced was I was disconnected. So I was so emotionally exhausted from having suppressed my emotions all the way up until that point. Now my hormones are doing all of their thing. So because I was so emotionally exhausted, I had grew numb to everything. And I could not, my biggest struggle was that I couldn't connect with my baby. And that made me feel like a bad mom, made me feel like I was doing something wrong, because why don't I feel all of these great things about my baby that everybody said I would? And I also didn't feel like myself, my body. I had grew up thinking that a large part of who I was and my value came from my body. And so when it wasn't looking the same anymore, that made me a lot more insecure. And so I struggled with breastfeeding. Everything just made me feel like it was a deep, deep sadness that I felt. And I felt, like a failure as a mom, just super hard on myself internally. I did not get help from anyone, so I was feeling isolated a lot. And just often confused. So just I would say that if you feel isolated, if you feel like there's something wrong with you, just know that these are absolutely normal emotions, normal feelings, especially for first-time moms. And I absolutely promote talking to someone and being able to embrace the help that comes with therapy, because it is going to. And I want to say this too, if you don't mind.
No, sure.
Whenever we work on that relationship with ourselves, it does permeate into the relationship with our children, and then how they have relationship with other people. And that was a huge part of inspiring me to get the help that I needed, because I didn't want to repeat the cycle of depression in my family. And so, yeah.
I appreciate you sharing it, because there's a lot of people that really don't know. I know my wife has experienced that before, after our youngest one. And just people in general, they just don't know how to identify it. And then when they get older, they like, oh, I was stressed out. And you're like, no, you probably wasn't just stressed. You was going through X, Y, Z.
Irritability is a common. Yep. It's definitely going to impact the relationships around you as well. So that was when when I had my son, that was when I first started learning how to put a name. And that's when I also learned about myself, how disconnected I was from my emotions. And fast forwarding to my daughter, now it was almost like as soon as I realized I was having a girl, I knew something had to change, because I was in a toxic and abusive relationship, and I just wanted better for her. And so I went back to therapy, and during that time I was like getting the help that I needed, but now I'm a single mom of 2, and it was just a lot. And on top of that, I'm a very ambitious person, just naturally. So now I'm trying to move up in my financial career. I also built a small company on the side that I was doing on the weekends. And so I say that to say I kind of lost that, consistency in my therapy journey. when I got to when I had my daughter, I got fired from my job in the financial field maybe like when she was 10 months. This happened right before the pandemic. So now I got to take this side hustle and make it into a business, because I moved from Charlotte to Wilson. If I would have stayed in Charlotte, I would have probably been able to find another job like that, because I'm a black woman licensed with my CC6, my 7. I'm a stockbroker, investment advisor. I could do whatever, And I had like all of my.
That's what everybody do when they do it. I just want to do it.
And
you ran that off real quick. Can you say it one more time?
So I had my stockbroker license, which is your Series 7. I had my investment advisor license, which was a Series CC6, and I was also licensed for insurance.
So she know about money. For those who needs to know about money.
And let me say this, though. The thing is, if I had never gotten into the financial industry, I would not have known anything about the stock market. I remember when somebody said, why are you applying for that job? You got to take a test. You got to get licensed to become an advisor or whatever. And I was just like, oh, I'm a test taker. I can do that. That's cool.
Yeah.
But I remember thinking to myself, like, just Googling one day, like, what kind of things that they do, really? Because I was just looking for more money.
Right.
And I was just like, what is a bond? What is this?
Yeah.
And I mean, to think back now, like, I can't believe I went from not knowing what a bond was to selling mutual funds. With it. And my son, it was, so that change in my life happened when I had my son. With my daughter, I became an entrepreneur, around her birth. And so fast forward a year after I lost my job from the financial industry, now the first 6 months of entrepreneurship were tough. But the last 6 months, I was doing my thing. My hair products were in retail. I was doing wholesale. I was doing distributor where we buy black. And things are looking really good. I was on my way to my first $10,000 a month. And that's when I realized that. And I can, the way that I'm about to say this is going to sound light, but it is so real. I realized that money does not make you happy.
No, not at all.
It was a shocker for me at that time.
When I tell you, you've been saying, so off camera, Charlotte mentioned something, and I was like, wow, me and my buddy Ken was just talking about that. And then she just mentioned something just now that me and my wife was just talking about recently, how we see people try to paint the picture on social media that, the money is where it's at.
Yeah.
And it's not really like that. You can be so unhappy and yet still have all the money that you need to survive. But what people don't realize, you need happiness. You need fulfillment.
Fulfillment, for sure.
You need relationships.
Yep.
Positive relationships.
That's right.
To survive. She has been going all the way in with insight, information, emotional feelings, like everything. She's just tapping into the whole spectrum. I did want to ask you a couple more questions. You talked about this earlier with your hair care business. So I wanted to kind of tap into, many entrepreneurs struggle with the balance between ambition and well-being. How do you personally maintain emotional wellness while running a business?
Oh, man, I love that question. So a friend of mine, we were talking last night about how I do it. She asked me, do you think that if you weren't the CEO and founder of SenterMe, would you be able to still have that awareness of wellness? And here's the thing. It's not fair to ask me that question, because what she was trying to do was saying, like, well, it's always at the top of mind for you. That's why it's so easy for you to keep integrating it into your day, into your life. But for me, it's deeper than that, because I didn't just go straight to SenterMe when I started learning how to love myself and embrace a more holistic and wellness lifestyle. I was still at the hair care company. I was still doing that. But I will say, though, that it is a decision you have to make. Like, you have to make that decision. And I made the decision that when I get to where I'm going, And when I say that, I mean whatever God's plan is for me, when I get to where I'm going, I want to be able to say I took care of myself. Because I don't believe that I need to struggle to be successful. And I also recognize, too, that end point is extremely insignificant when compared to the journey.
That's true.
You know? And so for me, it's about being more present in my journey. It is work. We recognized early on in building SenterMe that the women that we serve are not women who need us. It's women who have already recognized that they desire wellness in their life, but are just struggling to maintain it because of their lifestyle, right? And so, but you have to make a decision that this is what you want for your life, and then that's where we can come in and help you integrate it in a way that works for you. And so that's why our content ranges from 15 seconds to 10 minutes, because we want you to be able to say, you know what, I got 15 seconds. Let me.
Yeah, you can't deny that.
You know what I mean? And so for me, it was just like making sure that I pulled a lot from my personal life too. It's just like, I'm going to take this shower every day. Let me turn on some music, like some incense or something. Let me make this a thing. You know what I mean? Right. And it's so crazy. I was thinking about this morning. I was just like, I ritualize everything. And when I'm gonna moisturize my skin. I forgot my skincare when I got up here.
Man,
I was so mad.
She don't need no skin. She looked like she put all the things, but your skin look fine.
So here's the thing. When I bleach my hair, I break out.
Oh, okay.
So
'cause it's running down your face.
Well, I think the chemicals are just so strong. And but what I'm saying is, like, I choose moments in my life that I know I'm gonna do every single day. So if I know I'm gonna be in this mirror doing this skincare routine, I'm gonna affirm myself while doing it, because I want to be in the mirror looking at myself, speaking to me. I'm aware of the space that I require. I rise up to my purpose. I move strategically from a secure and abundant space. I know who I am. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I find ways to incorporate wellness in my life in a way that makes it natural. And if I'm going to be doing this anyway, why not do it in a way that makes me, that pours into me? Because everything that I do for my business is taking from me. Even though I am wildly passionate about it, whatever it is that you're doing, even if you feel like it's all I can think of, it's all that I want to do, it's still taking. And there has to be balance in that. You have to be able to replenish. You have to be able to release what doesn't serve you, and have that, because your body, it's a vessel that requires that constant flow of what I don't need, I'm releasing. What I need to replenish. You know what I mean? And so for me, it's just like, I know that the only way that I can come into a space and operate on the level that I operate, because I have a standard of expectation for myself where I want to be able to come into a space as my whole, full, authentic self. The only way that I can do that, the only way I can make that happen, is if I'm taking care of myself. Because if I don't, it's going to show up. It's going to show up in the way that I present. It's going to show up in the way that I come into a space. And one of the things that I affirm myself with is, my presence is felt before it is seen. It is heard before it speaks. It is seen before it enters the space. What I mean when I say that to myself is that because I pour into me, because I'm intentional about protecting my energy and my space, it literally removes half of the work that I would have to do to be visible, to make an impact. I'm leading by example, because if I wasn't the person that was taking care of myself, but I have a business talking about that, how impactful can my business be?
It'd be real hypocritical.
You know what I mean?
People be calling you out all online.
And granted, here's the thing. I was just telling my sister this the other day. There are still, there are people out here who are experts, and they have flaws. They're experts, and they do things that you would be like, dang, smoking is bad for you. But at the same time, it's just like, they're human beings. So at the same time, I say, like, I go into a space and I have to carry myself in a certain way that makes me feel like I can be my whole self, I can be my authentic self in that space. I also make sure that I'm giving myself grace in this journey, because sometimes I do struggle with fear, sometimes I do struggle with anger, and I will tap into SenterMe to help me, because one thing about it, two things for sure, I use SenterMe for me too.
Yeah. You getting that constant therapy, that constant all day, every day.
Let me tell you something. My therapist tried to. Okay, so she did find it finally did happen, but last year my therapist was like, "So why do you think you still need to be here?" And I was like, "Girl, can you ask me something else? Because you ain't about to get rid of me. Girl, ask me something else."
So last year I started therapy.
Okay, congratulations.
Yeah, I appreciate it. So last year, January, I started a very traumatic situation in my marriage. Basically, came about, and one of the resolutions to things is to tap into my childhood, tap into my past and things like that, and it was great. And I'll say like 7 months, 8 months in. My therapist asked me that same question. Corey, where do you see yourself now? Do you feel like you're showing up to be the better man and the better husband and the better friend? And I'm sitting there like, is he trying to dip off?
Okay.
Like I felt that though, but it's a good thing because they see you in a different light.
Yeah, you've progressed. Yes.
And he said that he was like, where you came when you came in January versus when you're at now. He was like, you're in a totally different space. But yeah, I've been on this promoting therapy to a lot of people.
Yeah.
Since last year. I talk about it at work. Talk about it when I go play basketball. It is.
It speaks to. So, like, when you grow in awareness of yourself, don't you feel so much more empowered?
Oh yeah, you got more control over your behavior,
your life,
mindset, everything.
Yeah.
So yeah, I definitely a huge advocate for that. One of the things that I read this book a long time ago called The Alchemist.
Me too.
And the reason I bring that up is I could tell you tap into that.
Oh yeah.
So my next question is, how can you share a moment where manifestation played a key role in your success?
Okay. So last year when we first started building SenterMe, so I made the decision the year before last, December of 2023, that this is what we were going to do. We were going to build this app. And when I made that decision, I had no knowledge in tech. I had no funding, nothing. I was just like,
rock bottom.
We go zero.
It's not built overnight. This is another guest where she is telling you rock bottom, and that is so. I hate the intervene, but I try to tell people all the time, there's no such thing as overnight success. People get hung up on what they see now and what they see what's happening. They don't realize it was a grind, or there was a level of, I don't know what to do. I don't have anything, but I'll let you continue.
Yeah. So the thing about me is, once I put my mind on something that I want, I'm like water. I'm going to find a way. It's just, I'm just going to find a way. And I started building a team in February, got this team built, right? Had to fire everyone on the team, even though they were volunteers. I had to fire everybody on the team.
Ain't nothing wrong with firing volunteers. If they ain't volunteering, they got to go. How people want to sign up to be volunteers and don't want to volunteer? I don't even know why you did it. So
it wasn't even that they didn't want to. It was just that they were uncomfortable with a black woman in leadership. And then that was, and so for me, it was just like, okay, how can I create safe spaces for these women if I can't even create a safe space in my organization for myself? So I had to let go of everybody, and I started from square one again. Okay, we're going to build this team. But what it taught me was, if you're building this company, just be aware of the culture that you're going to build. Be aware of the processes. Be aware of how, what is the communication going to look like? How are you showing up to make sure that you are building a structure for people to thrive in, right? And that was leadership 101. I knew how to be a leader. I didn't know how to be a manager. Big difference.
Yeah, and sometimes it's the opposite. Some people know how to manage, but they don't know how to be a leader.
Yeah. And so for me, it was just like, okay, I have this new team in April. Now I want to keep these folks, right? And I also want to make sure that now they understand that our 4 pillars here at SenterMe are respect first, inclusion, boundless creativity, and collaboration. And so as long as I manage this team to adhere to these pillars, we're going to be good. We ended up building, against all odds, the first emotional wellness and stress management app for women professionals in 9 months. We started beta testing in October. We launched and hit revenue generation in December. So when I tell you, all through the year last year, people kept telling me how I wasn't going to be able to do it because, well, you can't do it with volunteers. The turnover is going to be super high with volunteers. I proved that when you take care of your people, you pour into your people. I've had people that I had to let go give SenterMe an A+ rating when somebody had reached out to them like, hey, I'm actually I'm interviewing for your role that you just lost. What do you have to say about the company? And they were just like, nah, yeah, I dropped the ball on that. And so for me,
accountability.
Yes. And so for me, it was just like, SenterMe is a people first organization. And that's why we were able to, against all odds, against everybody's expectation. I've had people tell me to my face, you should just stick with consulting. This is too big of a project for you. This is not something that you should pursue. And nobody thought it was going to happen. I wasn't getting any money, any funding. I got super resourceful. It was to the point, I ain't going to say this, but I got real creative with how we were budgeting and making sure that the team had the tools that they needed.
And all the other podcasts, they be like, nah, say it. Say it. Nah, man, we going to call them out. That's what they be saying on all the other podcasts.
But what I will say...
They want the controversy.
Listen, what I will say is to tap into resources like, Microsoft for Startups was a huge resource for us because they gave us a free access to all their tools for a year. So their thing is like, if you can build something that is, worth its weight in salt in a year, you won't need this help anymore.
They stand by their product. That's all that is.
Yep.
When you can do that, and you can be like, hey, take that, try that out. You like this. Buy these herbs and these organic stuff, and you can try it out for 30 days. If you don't like it, we give you your money back. That's how they stand by their stuff.
I'm trying to tell you. So yeah, so when we hit revenue generation right before our Microsoft products, the free 1 year trial had ended. We hit revenue generation right then. So I literally took an idea, built a team, nurtured that team to our launch in 9 months.
That's dope, man. Charlotte, as we come to a close, man, I got one last question for you. And then I'll have my little intro form question. But my last question to you is, if you can give one piece of advice to a high achieving woman, struggling with emotional wellness, all the things, what would that type of advice be?
We exist in, and I know I keep referring back to this system, but we exist in a system that tells us that we have to constantly give ourselves, that we have to constantly show up. It puts restraints on us, tells us, how much money we should have at this time in our lives, if we should have children, when we should get married, what kind of moms we should be. And the advice that I give you is, it's 2 parts. You can be ambitious and still take care of yourself. they can work together. And the second part to this is, in doing so and in doing taking care of yourself, give yourself as much grace as possible. As much as possible. You are so vast. There are so many things that have already flowed through you. And you came out more expanded, more aware of yourself. So there's absolutely nothing that can break you, can keep you from what it is that you desire in this life. Knowing that, take it easy. Enjoy the ride. Enjoy the journey. And understand that because we operate in ebbs and flows, these peaks and valleys, that's all the more reason to remind yourself that you are not a robot. And that there are going to be times when you are not feeling yourself, and that's okay too. And so give yourself grace and understand that being ambitious and taking care of yourself can coexist.
Love it. My last question to you, Charlotte. What is one thing that you're thankful for?
The breath.
Sis over in the background said she was about to say that. So that means a lot of you probably feel the same way. But I want to thank you again, Charlotte, for taking the time out. I know you're super busy. This platform is designed to get the word out, in a sense, in the short version. This gives you the opportunity to reach a different audience.
Yep.
It allows me to let people see that there's another side of me other than just taking pictures. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I'm huge on relationships. I'm an Aquarius, so the cusp of a Pisces. So I'm very emotional and very driven by relationships, and I think this was something that I came up with years ago that I finally was able to put into motion. And it allows me to gain more relationships in the same sense. So a thanks to you. I will offer, you get free headshots for the next time you're in town. So if you need some headshots, outdoor, it's no cost for you. And also for your next speaking engagement in the RDU, I will come in and take pictures for you for your website and things of that nature for no cost for you doing this for me. So I appreciate you coming in, and I look forward to showcasing SenterMe on all the platforms.
I want to say this. When you told me about your podcast, I thought to myself, this is so brave and so needed, because people need to understand that there's so many, there's nobody under the sun that does not have a gift. We have so many, and that you are bravely exploring all of yours.
Yeah,
I love that. So yes, keep doing this.
Yeah, hugs. We give hugs. Yep. So I appreciate you, man, and thank you again for y'all tuning in. I told somebody else I don't have a name for my in true form audience, but they will have one soon. Okay. So peace out. Y'all have a blessed one. Thank you so much, Charlotte.
Yeah, listen, I was telling my